but you won't ever let it go. When you had the answer, when you were there alone, you left the door unopened when you knew that you would want more. Give it up, give it up, give it away while you were barely aware you learned that day. Cut off so much, hardly remained while you knew that there was still a way. This is your only plan, oh now this is your only. Now this is your only plan, oh now this is yours.
Struggle to pull themselves out of it. Move in the right direction. Take one step forward and let go of what's going to happen.
Let's get started. Welcome to another Healthy Gamer GG stream. My name is Dr. Alok Kanoja. Just a reminder that although I'm a psychiatrist, nothing we discuss on stream today is intended to be taken as medical advice. Everything we discuss today is for educational or entertainment purposes only. So if y'all have a medical concern or question, please go see a licensed professional. So, happy Friday, everybody. For those of y'all that are celebrating Independence Day in the United States of America, happy Independence Day. Today we have a fun topic. So we're talking about potentially healthy porn use. And what makes porn use healthy, what makes porn use potentially unhealthy. So I think we're going to dive into a lot of fun research. But before we kind of get started, I want to share a couple of things with y'all. So one thing that's super cool, let me see if I can find this. Give me a second, chat. Okay, so a couple of cool things before we get started. First is, if y'all have been around recently, y'all may have noticed that we did a couple of lectures on puer aeternus, and this is something that we're trying to do more recently. Like, so when there's a topic that really matters to people in the community and people really resonate with, we may get more into puer later if you guys want, but we've started to create like resource pages. So just additional info, kind of summaries, some of these like graphics and things like that. And so because people will ask us like, what do I do? And so I'm happy to explain like concepts and things like that and some like ways to get started. But the truth of the matter is, if y'all like are struggling with something, you know, it's not something that I can explain in 30 minutes, or sometimes I can, but the problem is everyone is a little bit different. So you sort of have to figure out what works for you. And so we've tried to create different kinds of resources and things like that. So if you kind of go to it'll give you all some guidance as to what to do. If we look at resources, you know, there's stuff like Dr. K's guide, which I think there's a lot of stuff around ego, which would help puers a lot. We also have a lot of like free resources because a lot of people, you know, don't have access to funds or means to do things. And then, you know, we have coaching and stuff like that, memberships for more advanced topics. So there's all kinds of stuff, and hopefully it'll help y'all get started. Another cool thing is we launched this meditation tracks thing where it sort of gives you kind of a structured, oh man, hold on. And this is really cool. So since we launched this, we've had people meditating for like 700 hours, which is neat, right? So we launched this on around June 25th. So over the course of the last like week and a half, seems like people are meditating like pretty consistently, and that's like super cool. So we're trying to build some of these tools for y'all. Yeah. Last thing is we have our early bird sign up special for Dr. Honda's workshop is over. I think we've got a few dozen seats left, maybe. But I think, a lot of it is reserved now. So if y'all are interested, Dr. Honda is an expert in things like relationships, attachment style, and personality disorders. And a lot of times, we'll talk about, okay, like if you've got toxic parents, this is the effect that it has on you. And then people will sort of ask me a question like, okay, how do I heal from bad parenting? And that's what the workshop is all about. It's not an area of expertise of mine. That is not my jam. This whole like healing, self-love kind of thing. Like I know it's kind of weird to say, but it's not just how I approach things. So we'll see. We all will get a taste of how I approach things later today, which tends to be a little bit more analytical, a little bit more explanatory. Alternative medicine stuff, sure, but sort of like the more rigorous side of it. Last thing is we are still looking for voicemails. So if y'all want to submit voicemails, really love it. I think people like it a lot. Y'all can use the command !voicemail in chat to sort of submit your voicemails. Okay, so there are guidelines like 90 seconds. So offer us like a little bit of context and what the challenge is, and then we'll try to get through those so that we can answer like more questions. Okay. All right. So without further ado, today we're going to talk about healthy pornography use and whether healthy pornography use is possible. And as we answer this question, I hope we will be able to discover, right? So if we understand what healthy pornography use looks like, if it's possible, then what we can do is, once we know what healthy use looks like, then we may have some insight into what creates unhealthy use. And if we understand those two variables, it will give us a way to navigate our pornography use, right? So what is really the problem with pornography? And I think so this too is like inspired a little bit by people in our community. So is moderate porn use really that bad? I've been conflicted with porn. I used to watch it a lot. Then I would be in a cycle of low-key trying to quit. One of the most common arguments that I have is that if you start watching it twice a week, then it ramps up. There are people who are clearly pro-porn. I'm concerned about frying my dopamine receptors since porn gives you a high dopamine rush. One final thing is that people say it ruins relationships and makes sex worse. So the counter argument is I usually hear is that I'm replacing porn for sex, but if I stop watching porn when I'm in a relationship where I can have sex, then is it okay to start watching it now if I can't get it any other way? So there's this post is pretty long, and I think it touches on a lot of the common ideas about pornography. Okay, so the first is that porn is bad for you. So we know that porn activates your dopamine receptors. People struggle to sort of figure out how to use pornography in relationships. Is porn something that I should do outside of a relationship? Is it something I should do inside of a relationship? Is it a form of infidelity? Like, what's the deal? Okay. And what's really shocking is that we now sort of have a very good idea of, maybe not a very good idea, a far better idea of what makes pornography problematic. And what we've discovered is actually quite shocking. So there's been an explosion of research in the last 2 or 3 years. And the key thing is there's been a lot of something called meta-analyses. So meta-analyses are when we take something like studies that have 1,000 participants each, we put them together so that we have a sample size of 50,000 people. One of the studies that we're going to be looking at today combines data from 50,000 individuals. And what we sort of found is quite shocking. So a couple of the key things that people, as we've combined all this data, here are a couple of shocking things that float to the surface. The first is that the amount of pornography that you watch does not seem to be correlated with how damaging it is. Shocking. So there are people who watch a lot of pornography for whom it is a big problem, and people who watch a lot of pornography for whom it is not a big problem. Okay, so the amount that you watch, so this kind of like general idea that, you know, once you start ramping up, it becomes more damaging, that doesn't appear to be the case. Okay, and we'll support this all with data in a second. Second thing is that there's this really contentious idea around pornography and relationships. But as the data shows, a lot of pornography actually enhances relationships. So pornography can be used to enhance relationships, or it can cause problem in relationships. And we'll sort of dissect why that happens, okay? So these are like two really big things. Third thing is that it seems that whether pornography is harmful or not doesn't depend on whether you're in a relationship, doesn't depend on the frequency of usage, but depends on the way that you use it. And this is what I think is sort of floating to the surface. So we have all these ideas that, like, you know, porn is bad for us, right? And we have this idea that like porn is like this stuff that affects the brain. And that's something that I've explained several times before, how it affects the brain, affects our dopamine receptors, affects our emotional circuitry, so therefore it is bad. But I think the picture that we're starting to develop about pornography is that it's actually very similar to any other addictive thing, whether it's a behavior or a substance. So if we look at alcohol addiction or alcohol usage, 6% of people are addicted to alcohol. The majority of people who utilize alcohol can utilize it in a healthy way. And I think what we're starting to see with pornography is that that may be true. Now, this is where things are a little bit different because substance use disorders and behavioral addictions are fundamentally different. In the case of alcohol use, for example, you can have a genetically inherited single receptor, which alcohol activates more robustly. So you can have a very robust transmission of a neurotransmitter called GABA. And that can make you like, you know, you can have like alcoholism runs in families. So you can inherit a single receptor. So this is important to understand. When we're talking about a substance use disorder, like a substance-based addiction, you can have an alteration of a single receptor that can drastically increase your risk of addiction. When it comes to behavioral addictions like video game addiction, pornography addiction, social media addiction, whatever, there's not a single receptor in your brain that, you know, gets activated by a chemical compound. Therefore, I think the risk of these behavioral addictions is more like global. So it's more like of a whole brain effect. There are more issues around personality and kind of personality vulnerabilities and certain kinds of behaviors and dynamics that make it addictive or not addictive. We'll go into all that. Does that kind of make sense, y'all? So today we're going to talk about this stuff, okay? And then once we understand, so it's not based on the frequency of usage, can actually be used to enhance relationships, can improve a sense of like life satisfaction by using pornography, like there's data behind that. So we're going to dive into all that. And then what we'll sort of settle on is when does pornography become problematic? And how do we address those issues? Okay? So let's start. I feel like there was one other thing that I wanted to say. Oh, yeah. So, hold on. Okay. So let's start with this study. Okay, so this is a study that's looking at perceived effects of pornography on the couple relationship. Initial findings of an open-ended, participant-informed, bottom-up research. Okay, so here's the key thing we need to understand about pornography addiction research. Much of the empirical research concerning pornography's impact on couple relationships can be legitimately characterized as a confirmatory search for the presumed harms of exposure. So let's start by understanding what this means, okay? Typically involve theoretically guided experimental and correlational investigations of pornography use on selective close-ended endpoints, okay? So what does this mean? This means that if we look at the research on pornography, the studies will be trying to assess pornography addiction or problematic pornography use. They're not looking at the effect of pornography. They're saying, let us see if pornography is damaging. So when these researchers are doing this investigation, they will craft their questions and frame the study in a way that presumes that pornography is harmful. So they'll use close-ended questions like, do you have a problem with pornography? Or do you use more pornography than you want to, for example? So if you look at that question, I can answer yes to that question, but that doesn't mean that I have a problem with pornography, right? Like you could say, like, do you eat more chips than you want to? Yes. And just because I eat more chips than I want to doesn't mean that I'm addicted to chips. So the first thing that these researchers are now realizing is that there's like a bias in the way that we do research. So what this study is they didn't start with the presumption that pornography is harmful. They did qualitative research that's bottom up. So they just asked people open-ended questions like, how does pornography affect your relationships? So let's take a look at what they found. Okay? So if you don't presume it's harmful. The other thing is that we should talk about is that most of the research on pornography is done on individuals, right? So that it's not looking at relationships and asking what is the impact that pornography has on your relationships. Sometimes they'll have studies like that. Well, they'll ask, how has pornography harmed your relationship? And do y'all see how like those two research questions are very different? But there are all these assumptions about the harms of pornography use, right? So there's a bunch of blah, 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 blah. Oh, whoops. On the wrong thing. Okay, so let's look at this. So while a similar number of positive and negative perceived effects were identified, generally speaking, positive effects of pornography use were reported more frequently than negative consequences by participants. And there was a predominant tendency for participants to reject the view that pornography contributes to negative consequences, i.e. that people were on board with the idea that pornography has no negative impacts. Okay? So it would appear that many individuals experience effects of pornography on themselves and the couple relationship that do not conform to the investigator-imposed close-ended endpoints represented in bulk of published experimental and correlational research in this area. Okay, what that sort of means is that if you ask people open-ended questions, how does pornography impact your relationship? Instead of asking them, what problems does pornography cause? We end up with very different answers. The most common response in this sample by a very large margin was that pornography had no negative impacts on the pornography users, their partners, or their relationships. So the most common answer, right? And this is this is asking 430 people, by the way, okay? So many scholars may be surprised and dismissive of the reports of positive perceived effects of pornography use, as it has been strongly asserted that pornography limits rather than liberalizes sexuality. Such assertions have their roots in long-standing radical feminist assumptions that pornography privileges male sexual pleasure, denies female agency, and degrades women. Okay? So several positive perceived effects uncovered in this study correspond to known clinical benefits of pornography use, including several benefits that have been established in experimental studies involving women, such as increased sexual arousal and interest. Okay. The acquisition or imitation of pleasurable sexual behaviors and the reduction of sexual anxiety. Right? We are particularly intrigued by the prominent theme concerning pornography's association with sexual communication. We found that many people expressed how using pornography made communication easier, and such responses frequently mentioned learning about each other through sexual self-disclosures of likes and dislikes, as well as increased perceived closeness and intimacy that accompanied such communications. Okay, so this is very interesting. Now, we're going to present a lot more nuance than this, okay? So the first thing to understand, right, we're going to recap for a bit, is that a lot of the studies, so there's this kind of idea from radical feminist views that pornography is subjugating to women and things like that, and I think there's a fair amount of evidence for that. There's a lot of abuse that happens in the production of pornography. I don't think that those arguments are wrong by any means. These authors, I think, I think they draw a conclusion. So like they have this sentence over here that I don't agree with. So here's something spicy. I left it out. In light of such empirical evidence, continuing claims that pornography typically limits sexual expression, especially for women, are dubious at best. So they sort of make this conclusion. I don't know if that's a fair conclusion. But the key thing here is that if you ask people how pornography messes up your relationship, and it does negatively impact relationships, we'll get to that. That's the key point. But on the whole, if you ask 430 people who do not have problems and who do not have a problem, you just ask them, how does pornography affect your relationship? The most common answer is that it doesn't cause a negative impact. And that there are a lot of really interesting things that come up, which are like, it enhances communication. It gives people ideas. It gives people an option to explore. It helps them understand their partner. It increases sexual intimacy, which is weird, right? That's not the narrative that we hear a lot. So this is the first thing, is that it doesn't necessarily harm relationships. In fact, it appears sometimes quite the opposite. So here's a study looking specifically at women. So women in relationships and their pornography use, a systematic review and thematic synthesis. So shared use of pornography with partners provided variety in sexual activities, could aid in communication about sexual issues, and helped improve intimacy. Pornography use can help some women feel sexually empowered, relaxed, and better able to enjoy their sexual lives, right? So we're not going to go into, let me just make sure. Oh, sorry. I don't know why it's over there. Okay. Just make sure. Yeah, I don't think there's something else I want to pull out of this. Oh, no. Let's see. Okay. So let's take a look at this in more detail. So here's some, so generally speaking, women appear to find pornography on average to be helpful, but there is some more concerning evidence. So among women, however, there is a negative association between discontinuing pornography use and divorce. Of those women who continue to watch porn during both surveys, 18% are predicted to be divorced at time 2, compared to only 6% of those who stopped viewing porn in between the two surveys. Overall, these figures suggest that women who watch pornography get divorced at higher rates than men who watch pornography. So this is a bit of data that seems to imply that women who continue to watch pornography after they enter a relationship have a higher rate of breaking up. So some of these concerns about pornography in the relationship are valid, right? So nearly 1/3 of engaged and married women report that they view pornography as a form of marital infidelity. So there are actually there are absolutely sub-pockets or pockets of, there are absolutely pockets of people who find pornography use problematic in relationships. And there is some evidence that it leads to higher rates of breakup and divorce. And 1/3 of women find it to be a sign of marital infidelity, okay? I'm going to just check in with y'all for a second. How do y'all feel about the pace of the data? Are y'all able to understand? Do y'all want me to slow down, speed up? What do y'all want me to do? It's great. Okay, great. Okay, awesome. We're going to keep going, okay? So the key thing here, so I want to stop for a second and just talk about this, okay? So the key thing here is that if we don't ask biased questions, it seems like pornography can be used in a healthy way. That even women find, I don't know if I can say the majority of women, but there is a solid amount of evidence that many women find pornography use in relationships and men in relationships as non-negative things. In fact, it can enhance communication and intimacy and lead to things like exploration. But there is evidence that even though people feel like it can be good, there is an increased risk of breakup and divorce, that 1/3 of women consider it to be some form of infidelity, right? So this is where I think we're kind of getting into like why we want to talk about this today. How do we tell the difference? right? So what is the difference between a relationship where we watch pornography, it enhances communication and intimacy, and in another relationship where we use pornography and it increases the risk of divorce? It is not the pornography itself. It is something going on within the relationship or within the person that makes it problematic or positive. So there is a way to use pornography in your own life where it doesn't harm you, potentially even helps things. There is a way to use pornography in your relationships where it doesn't harm you, potentially helps the relationship. And there are ways that you can use pornography that seem to cause problems. Okay? So let's get into why that is. So now let's talk about pornography consumption and satisfaction, a meta-analysis. Okay, so this is looking at the relationship between pornography consumption and satisfaction. So first, that satisfaction is a subjective state influenced by comparisons. I gotta add some context. So in early papers, authors primarily hypothesized that pornography had detrimental effects on satisfaction, i.e., if you watch pornography, it's going to ruin sex for you, right? First, that satisfaction is a subjective state influenced by comparisons to others and their experiences. So basically, people assumed that pornography would have a detrimental effect on your satisfaction. And the reason is because if you watch porn, you have all these unrealistic expectations of what sex looks like and stuff like that. And then when you engage in the real thing, the tits are not huge, the penises are not huge, not everything is huge and bouncy and super high def and colorful and whatever, right? And so therefore, you will feel less satisfied than the real thing. Second, that pornographic actors are more sexually attracted and skilled than most consumers and their partners, and the gratifications from sex depicted in pornography exceed the gratifications that most consumers experience in their lives, right? So the gratification that is portrayed in pornography with all the yelling and the screaming and the wriggling and the shaking and the moaning and the whatever is like so big, and like the gallons and gallons of bodily fluids that are expressed. Real life just isn't like that. Penis is like 4 inches. The sexual act on average lasts 3 to 7 minutes. 50% of women prefer that it be done within 10 to 15 minutes. And so like if there's this like larger than life kind of representation, you compare it to the real thing, you will feel inferior, okay? In recent papers, however, it has become common for authors to reason that pornography may enhance the satisfaction of consumers, okay? So, for example, in a series of studies, Hald and colleagues found that when queried about how pornography has impacted them, consumers report that their use has increased their satisfaction with their sexual knowledge, outlook, efficacy, skill, relations, experiences, and even their life in general. Like, what? If you ask people, like, how does porn affect your life? They're like, yeah, it makes me better at life in general. It makes me more effective. I'm learning some secret jutsus from the Pornhub. People who consume pornography more frequently and for longer durations are especially likely to perceive such positive impacts. What? So people who watch more porn and watch porn longer are more likely to say that it increases their sexual knowledge, their outlook, their efficacy, their skill, their relations. Yeah, I watch porn for an hour 3 times a week. It really enhances my relationships. And it really improves my life. Like, what? Okay. Right, so this is like really strange. Let me just make sure there's not other stuff here that I want to highlight. Okay, I think that's this paper. Okay, great. So this is strange, right? This is not the bill of sale. Like, this is not what we were sold. And so is it really that bad? Because there's all these kinds of communities, right, about, like NoFap and things like that. So, like, let's try to dig into, y'all curious about this? Do y'all want to, y'all want to go over more research and dive into what's going on, or y'all want to take a look at more posts? What do y'all think? Okay. Let me just check in. Okay. These studies are fake and biased. Okay. We'll keep going, okay? All right. Next. The highs and lows of pornography use. Does motivation affect users' life satisfaction? So now this is important. So if you look at some studies on pornography, they show that as you use pornography, your life satisfaction goes down. You have depressive effects. We're going to get to those studies in more detail in a second. Now, this is a really cool study because this is a study that's trying to figure out, for the people who have highs from pornography and people who have lows from pornography, what's the difference? If it improves your life satisfaction or makes your life satisfaction worse, what is the difference? So now we're getting to a more nuanced understanding of pornography. The first of which is that oh, hold on a second. I'm going to wait for the garage to close. Okay. More like people are, yeah, so we'll get to, so they talk about bias here. Hold on. No, not this one. Let me see if I can find this. Okay. Let's take a look at this, right? So y'all were saying, but what if they're biased? Oh. So, however, these authors of these studies caution that these self-perceived effects may also be due to rationalization, justification, and biased optimism. It is common for people to rationalize and justify and to perceive themselves as personally less susceptible to any negative impacts of the behaviors that provide them with immediate and powerful rewards, right? So, great job, chat. Y'all pointed out, hey, like maybe it really doesn't have these effects. Maybe people are wrong, they're biased, they're not going to answer honestly, and that's a consideration in the research for sure, okay? So now let's look at the highs and lows of pornography use, because there are, but not the counter argument, but an additional data point to consider is that some studies show that it causes problems and some studies show that it doesn't cause problems. So now this study is trying to figure out, does motivation affect users' life satisfaction? This is an important study. We're going to pause for a second, okay? So we know that porn harms some people, seems to help some people. So now the question is, what's the difference? Is the reason that you use pornography, is your motivation towards pornography, does that influence whether it helps your life or harms your life? Okay? Really cool question. Participants with problematic pornography use felt less satisfied with their life. Okay. Participants with problematic pornography use felt less satisfied with their life, were less self-aware, and experienced lower levels of perceived choice than both the no-symptom and few-symptom groups. Okay? So this is a study that's looking at problematic pornography use versus non-problematic pornography use, and what's the difference? So let's keep going. I think there's more stuff in here. Okay. Studies focused on the effect of problematic use on sexual well-being and pornography use on sexual well-being and satisfaction suggested that although it can have positive effects on one's attitude, sexual well-being, and sexual satisfaction, when it becomes problematic, it is often associated with negative outcomes on the aforementioned variables. So this is important to understand. There is a camp of people for whom it is okay, and if we shift into problematic use, all of the things that pornography enhances, it now starts to damage. Right? So like pornography use is a little bit like, I'd almost say it's like, let's like consider drinking water. So drinking water is generally speaking healthy for you, but if you cross over into hyponatremia, which is consuming too much water, and your sodium balance drops, suddenly water which helped you can start to now cause weird swelling in your brain and things like that. So there is a critical point at which pornography becomes problematic. And the moment it becomes problematic, all the things that it used to help in your life, it is now hurting. Okay? Let's see if we can figure out why. Okay. Okay. So now let's look at the discussion. Our results suggest that compared to non-problematic pornography users, Individuals with problematic pornography use experience less self-awareness and have a lesser sense of choice. Specifically, that less autonomous and more extrinsic motivations are associated with higher levels of problematic pornography use, okay? So people who are not very self-aware and feel like they're out of control in life, people who are driven more by extrinsic motivations, people who feel like they are not autonomous with their pornography use, those are the signs of problematic pornography use. Now, this is where things become a little bit tricky, because if I'm addicted to porn, does that lead to a lack of autonomy, or does a lack of autonomy lead to problematic pornography use? Do y'all understand that? It's like, maybe I feel out of control, which is why I feel out of control. Like I'm addicted to porn. It makes me out of control. Is it the chicken or the egg? Based on current outcomes, we can posit that individuals who experience negative symptoms associated with pornography use are less self-determined and autonomous in their motivation and are less satisfied with their life. Okay? So this is like, sort of seems obvious, right? Where like, okay, so if you have negative symptoms with pornography use, you're going to be less satisfied, less self-determination, less autonomy, and less satisfied with your life. Okay? Now we get to the mother lode, and then we tie it together. Okay? High-frequency pornography use may not always be problematic. Okay? So this is a really interesting study that looks at the frequency of pornography use and compares high-frequency pornography use. This is where the acronyms get a little bit tricky, but I'll help you all out, okay? So they basically look at like how often you use porn and how problematic it is. And what they discover is that frequency of use doesn't necessarily correlate with problematic use. So even if you watch a lot, it's not necessarily bad. And they look at all kinds of things. They look at impulsivity, compulsivity, ADHD. It's a really great study. Okay, here we go. So first thing, really fascinating. ADHD symptoms did not distinguish between non-problematic high-frequency use, i.e. people who watch a lot of porn but doesn't affect them negatively, and problematic high-frequency use. So both categories are watching a lot, but ADHD doesn't seem to affect whether it's problematic or not. What ADHD does do is seems to correlate with higher levels of usage, but not necessarily problematic usage. Despite previous results reporting a positive association between ADHD and problematic use. So I think this is really important. Okay? Previous studies have showed that ADHD correlates with problematic pornography usage. But if you separate, what it probably correlates with is more pornography usage, but not necessarily problematic. So it increases the total amount of porn consumed, not necessarily making it harmful, okay? The latter finding is consistent with the criteria for hypersexuality disorder that include engaging in behaviors such as pornography viewing to escape from or cope with negative mood states. Regarding stress, well-being, and depression domains, measures of perceived stress, mindfulness, and satisfaction with one's life did not differentiate between non-problematic high-frequency use and problematic high-frequency use. So this is crazy. So stress, well-being, and depression domains, measures of perceived stress, mindfulness, or satisfaction with one's life, do not appear to differentiate people who are healthy gooners from people who are unhealthy gooners. Okay? According to the present results, individuals having lower levels of self-esteem were more likely to belong to the problematic high-frequency use. So low self-esteem seems to be critical. Not stress, not how mindful you are. So you can be like meditating a lot, but if you still have low self-esteem, now we're really getting somewhere. If you use pornography to cope with negative mood states, that's a problem. Not directly. So this is kind of tricky, okay? So I'm going to explain this. You may say, but hold on a second, Dr. K, like let's look at this sentence and this sentence. This sentence says, depression is not correlated with problematic use. This sentence right here. And this sentence says, escaping from negative mood states is associated with problematic use. Okay, so let's talk about this. So it's not whether you're depressed or not. It is how you manage those feelings of depression. Do y'all understand the difference? This is critical. So depression or well-being or life satisfaction aren't directly correlated. It is the way in which you use the pornography. It's not the feelings themselves that cause the pornography problems. It is the way that you use the pornography in relation to the feelings. So there are a lot of people who are depressed who watch porn but don't use it as a coping mechanism. They may be in relationships where it actually enhances their sexual intimacy and their feeling of connection. So it is not the presence or absence of depression. It is how the pornography combines with the feelings of depression. Key thing, though, is that it seems like self-esteem as a variable is correlated with problematic use. Okay? So if you feel bad about yourself and you watch pornography, that is probably a problem. Okay? This is all correlational data. So among men who viewed pornography and thought about it as wrong, relatively low frequencies of pornography viewing were associated with depressive symptoms. So this is also really interesting. The way you view pornography, issues of moral incongruence and religious views, that's what causes the problem. So it's not how much you watch. If I think watching pornography is wrong, if I'm in a relationship where my partner thinks watching pornography is moral infidelity, then if I watch pornography, then it causes problems. It is my attitude towards pornography plus a small amount of usage that causes the problem, not the pornography itself. There is something within my mind that when combined with pornography can make it healthy for me or unhealthy for me. Okay? Oh my God. Okay, let me just make sure this is the last thing and then we'll explain. Okay? So overall, basic psychological needs frustration contribute importantly to illness and impairment. Individuals who feel they cannot develop mutual, meaningful social relationships because they are hindered in them may find pornography is an easy way to feel connected to someone, especially in the case of feeling that they are hindered in their romantic relationships. This process could result in a vicious cycle of problematic pornography use in which the individual cannot develop meaningful personal relationships, thus consuming more pornographic materials, which in turn could result in even fewer social interactions. Furthermore, individuals who feel ineffective in their environment and feel that they are thwarted in fulfilling their capacities might turn to pornography as a tool to reduce their negative feelings and emotions deriving from competence frustration, such as in the case of depression. Okay? Non-problematic high-frequency users and problematic high-frequency user groups, competence and relatedness frustration differentiated the classes. Okay? So I'm going to pause for a second. Did y'all understand what that meant? And if not, now we're going to tie it together. Did y'all get that? What did y'all understand from that? That's kind of the... Okay, good. Great. I think it means I can goon on. Okay. So let's understand this. Okay? I'm going to tie it together. So, is porn bad? The answer is, it depends. Okay? So the first thing that's really interesting is frequency is not directly correlated with bad or good. So you can watch a ton of porn. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's harmful. That there are cases where it enhances intimacy, satisfaction. It's like, yeah, like I got a promotion. I went home and I watched porn for a while. Like I'm living the life. It's great, dude. It's great. Okay. It can also enhance relationships. So it's not bad. And then it's bad. So let's understand what makes it bad. Okay? So we know that Pornography is associated with loneliness. Pornography can cause relationship problems. And we'll talk about relationship problems in a second. But here's the key thing. So this issue, I want to kind of pull this up because this is like, it's nuanced and it's important, okay? Basic psychological needs frustration. This is the problem. This is the nuts and bolts. So it's psychological needs frustration. This is really important to understand. Problematic pornography use does not depend on whether your needs are satisfied or not. So psychological needs frustration comes from something called self-determination theory. And what they basically say is that human beings have a need for, let's say, love. Psychological frustration does not come from whether this box is filled in or not. Okay? You can be satisfied with an empty box. Or not satisfied. You're not satisfied, but this doesn't cause the problem. You can have an empty box and be fine. What causes the problem is when I try to fill in the box and it doesn't work. So when I make an attempt and I am rebuffed, that is what causes the problem. So people who try to engage in relationships, and psychological determination theory has a couple of components, okay? The first is autonomy. So when my autonomy is suppressed, okay? Let me see. Oh, yeah. When my competence is undermined and my attempts to relate / connect with others are rebuffed. This is really important to understand. In both cases, you can be lonely or not lonely. Like, it doesn't matter. It's not the loneliness. It is not the need being satisfied or not satisfied that causes the problem. You can be hungry. What increases the risk of problematic pornography use is when I try to connect to another human being and I am rejected. When I have no purpose or when I try to exert a direction in life, when I try to exert control, when I try to do a good job, and it doesn't work out. That is what leads to problematic pornography use. A sense of lack of autonomy after trying. A sense of this is not loneliness. No. After trying. This is what leads to problematic pornography use. It isn't the loneliness itself. And this is when we get into this vicious cycle. Okay? Individuals who who feel that they cannot develop mutual, meaningful social relationships because they are hindered in them may find pornography an easy way to feel connected to someone. This process could result in a vicious cycle of problematic pornography use in which the individual cannot develop meaningful personal relationships, thus consuming more pornographic materials, which in turn could result in fewer social interactions. Furthermore, individuals who feel ineffective in their environment and feel they are thwarted in fulfilling their capacities may turn to pornography as a tool to reduce their negative feelings and emotions, deriving from competence frustration, such as in the case of depression. So this is important. It's not just that they are lonely, it's that they try to connect and then they get rejected. And then the other thing that happens is when they feel bad, right? And this could be depression. It could be loneliness. Then they turn to porn as a coping mechanism. And so what makes pornography use problematic is the intersectionality of who you are, how you view it, the way that you use it, But also, this is really important, the way that you are in the outside world. Do I have low self-esteem? Did I try to connect with other people and I get rejected? And this is, I think, why we're seeing an epidemic of pornography use. It's not about the dopamine. It's not about the amygdala. It's not about the emotions. It is about an attempt to connect to other people. It is about an attempt to create direction in your life. It is about an attempt to exert competency. And when you get rebuffed, rejected, that's when pornography becomes a problem. It is those feelings combined with the unhealthy coping mechanisms, right? That's what creates the problem. Make sense? So if you are, it's not the pornography itself, right? So if you want to use pornography in a healthy way, this is where the first thing that we have to do is work on self-esteem. The second thing we have to do is focus on autonomy. The third thing we have to do is focus on competence and exerting competence. It's not just being competent. It is being able to let that competence find a manifestation in the real world. It is about being able to control the direction of your life. And here's the key thing, relatedness. Being able to connect with other people. And then what we can do is get to the standard pornography addiction stuff, right? So coping mechanisms, emotional awareness, emotional regulation. But I want y'all to understand this. This is not just doing this stuff. So this is why I think everyone struggles with pornography addiction, because they focus on these things and not these things. Now, there are a couple of other nuances here. The first is that these are perceptions. Psychological frustration, remember, is not about the reality of whether you are alone or not alone. This is so weird. You can be alone and not be psychologically frustrated. The psychological frustration is what causes the damage, not the loneliness. It is the attempt to connect where you get rejected. That is what causes the problem. But that too is a perception. So this is the crazy thing, right? So a lot of people think, like, you fall into this trap, which is like very real, of getting trapped in an isolated way, where you watch a bunch of porn, it's hard for you to socialize, and then you kind of get trapped in this cycle. But this is the crazy thing. It's not about you actually being alone. It's about your perception when you go out into the world. Do you get rejected? Yeah. But some people get rejected and will try again. Some people will even, like, when they get rejected, they kind of won't take it personally, right? There's a weird, like, psychological component where if you ask someone out on a date and they say no, that doesn't mean that you're a loser. That means maybe they're not interested in dating. Maybe they're not attracted to your gender. So when I work with people who are addicted to pornography, what I find is they fill in the gaps of their real rejections with a lot of psychological frustration. And this is what makes it so hard. It's not that the rejection isn't real, but it is not the rejection, or it is not that the loneliness is not real. The loneliness is real, but the loneliness is not the problem. It is the attempt to connect followed by the rejection. And this is where this is the really, like, good and bad thing. The good thing is that part of this is in your perception. Not all of it. So there's a reality here, but it is the way that you connect with that reality. It is the way that you interpret that reality. That is what is really in your control. Right? So this is where, like, oftentimes people will get upset with me because Dr. K doesn't understand the reality of my situation. I'm not saying that there isn't a loneliness epidemic. There is a loneliness epidemic. The issue is, in a loneliness epidemic, if you are addicted to porn, what can you do? And like we try to work on the system here at Healthy Gamer. Like, you know, we went to Capitol Hill last year or earlier this year. Time is a blur. and like tried to increase funding for the addiction workforce by $2 billion. So we tried to do things on a systems level, right? We tried to do things with the United Nations, World Health Organization, United States government, whatever. We like work on those angles. So we're trying to fix the problem systemically, right? Because the system sucks. But if you're someone who's struggling, you've got two choices. Wait for the system to get better, or control what you can in your realm. And this is what makes it so hard, because we're so focused on loneliness. We're so focused on NoFap and cutting back our usage. This is the reason why, despite the fact that people are doing all of this stuff, it's not working on a global scale. It may work for some people, but the problem is still increasing. And the reason it's increasing is because we don't understand really what the problem is. So many people I work with who are struggling with pornography spend all of their cognitive energy in trying to watch less. And then they relapse. Whereas that's not where the problem is. So you're spending all of your energy digging a hole where there is no water for your well. So you can dig as much as you want to. You're cognitively exhausted. It doesn't even work. There are all these perceptions about, what it does to your relationships. It does not have a effect on the relationship. The effect it has on your relationship depends on who you are, depends on your partner, who your partner is, and how y'all navigate that. We'll get to that in a minute. So if you're struggling with porn, focus on building a life. Focus on becoming autonomous, becoming competent, because those are the psychological vulnerabilities that when you feel that way and you feel rejected, then you feel bad on the inside, then you turn to the porn. That's what creates the cycle. And this is why, when we developed a coaching program specifically to target technology, the technological world we live in. And that's why the North Star that we have, it's not a clinical program. The reason it's not a clinical problem is because the goal isn't depression or anxiety. Our North Star is life purpose. And the reason we built it that way is because if you can develop a purpose in your life, if you can become autonomous and competent and start to build a life, then the addiction will melt away. You still have to do some behavioral stuff around it, but the fuel for it is gone. And that's why when we put together lectures like this, we're trying to explain to y'all what the principles are so you can understand where to target your energy. Okay? Now let's talk about pornography in relationships. So pornography isn't good or bad for relationships. Whether it is good for bad or for relationships depends on the people involved. So first thing that makes pornography harmful in relationships is a moral stance towards it. The moment that you moralize it, doesn't matter if it's the man, doesn't matter if it's the woman, doesn't matter if you're gay, doesn't matter if you're straight, doesn't matter. Someone who takes a moral view of pornography, presuming there is disharmony, if someone who takes a moral view, it's only a problem if you use pornography and you think it's bad, or if y'all are in disagreement. So there are cases where if both people are happily married or whatever, and they both think that pornography is a sin of the devil and no one ever touches pornography, I imagine that they're fine. But the problem isn't the usage, it is the view towards the usage. So if you view it as moral infidelity, it will cause problems in your relationship and likely lead to an increase in divorce. The other cool thing is that couples who use pornography find that it is really helpful if you can approach it in the right way. The first thing is that it allows for people to explore. So literally what this looks like, I've had patients who've done this. You watch some pornography and you get excited about something and you're like, hey, can we try this? Because I don't know if this makes sense, but do y'all know how awkward it is to try to tell your partner about your fetishes? Just how vulnerable you have to be, how scary it is, and then you have to go into detail, right? Because then you speak in vagues, hey, do you ever think about doing other stuff? And they're like, what do you mean other stuff? They're on their guard. They're like, I don't know, put your something somewhere. I don't know, put your something somewhere. And they're like, put my something somewhere? What does that mean? What do you want me to put where? right? It's so awkward. So the amount of communication skill that you need is like really, really high. So instead, what people will use is they'll watch pornography. They'll be like, hey, should we try this? And then there's an experimentation. And in order to experiment, it actually, like, you have to figure out a system of communication where the pornography can do some basic foundation for you, some scaffolding. So then you start communicating around it. Then you can kind of ask your partner, what do you like about it? What excites you about this? Hey, can we try this? And then it can move in the right direction. I think a huge mistake that a lot of people make, if y'all are like gooners listening to this happens way too often, where like usually, I don't know if it's just because the majority of my patients who I talk with about pornography are dudes, but they'll be like, they will try to turn their relationship into their sexual fantasy. That is harmful, IMO. Where it's like, oh yeah, like, can you do this and do this and do this? I want you to become what I see in the pornography. That I think is bad, right? Because then you're not with your partner. You are trying to turn your partner into a fantasy. So I find that oftentimes, like, dudes who are like, yeah, like, let's do this and like, let's watch this. They're very self-centered with their approach. They're not considering their partner's feelings. It's not an exploration or experimentation together. That's the key thing. Experimentation means not having an end goal in mind. That means figuring it out together, relying on communication. So if y'all are like dudes out there and you're like, oh, Dr. K says this will enhance our relationships. Let's watch this porn and I want you to do this to my body. No, that's bad. Okay? It's a way to explore. It's a way to connect. It can be, anyway. And the more that we make it about our fantasies, the less, the less connected we make it, the more harmful it's going to be. And if you do have, this is the other thing that makes pornography harmful, is having a moralistic attitude towards it in relationships and in your personal life. So if you view yourself as a pornography addict and you say pornography is bad and it's a sin of the devil and things like that, that's going to make things worse, not better. So that's where, like, practice a little bit of self-compassion. It's not, if you have a goal of like wanting to reduce your pornography use, go for it. But you don't need to beat yourself up in the process. Right? You can say, hey, I want to live a life that has less pornography or no pornography. I don't think it's really healthy for me. It's a process. It's a journey. I'm going to start working on it, but it's not going to be easy. Okay? So someone's asking, why is pornography not banned? I think the reason it's not banned is because it doesn't clearly have a uniformly harmful effect. Because we don't ban things that people like that hurt us unless they are all damaging, right? So we have alcohol, we have nicotine, we have all kinds of addictions, video games, gambling. We have all kinds of harmful stuff that we allow because people like it and it doesn't hurt everybody. The stuff that is very, very, very harmful is usually what we ban. Okay? Yeah, and there's a lot of money in it. So, let's do y'all want to do, okay, let me just look at one other post. Okay. NoFap opened my eyes. It's not just about urges, it's about respect. So let's look at a post, and now that we know more of the science, let's try to take a look at a post and see where we how we can analyze this, okay? This is not hate, not red pill, not misogyny. It's a wake-up call for men to stop giving away our energy, stop chasing fake validation, and start building real self-respect. I joined NoFap to stop wasting time on urges, but what I realized in just a few clean days is this: the problem goes way deeper. Modern dating feels broken because we helped to break it. Men gave out likes, validation, simping, and free attention to women who don't even value them. Even average girls have 10,000 plus followers and 100 thirsty DMs, not because they've earned it. I'm not quite sure what it means to earn it, but because we've enabled it. Threes, ghost sevens, good men are invisible, validation is the currency, and we're broke. No fap helps you wake up. When you stop fapping and chasing your illusions, you start seeing how bad it's gotten. Stop giving free validation to women who give you nothing back. Unfollow thirst traps. Build your value. Stop begging to be seen. Say no to porn, OnlyFans, and digital illusions. Remember, self-respect is the first step to real love. We as men must act together. One guy doing no fap isn't enough, but millions of us reclaiming our power. That wires the whole system. Share this, spread it, post it, post it, post it. Not for clout, for truth. Respect isn't given to men who chase. It's earned by men who grow. What do y'all think about this? Right? So, this is what, like, I appreciate these responses. So let's start with this, right? Like, so now let's go through our paradigm and see if we can suss out what's going on here. So this is going to be cool. What do you think this person thinks about their self-esteem? Self-esteem is high or low? It's good. Super mixed is great. So I think this is really good. So y'all are saying super mixed, and this is exactly the problem. Is that people have a sense of what the problem is, but they don't really understand what the problem is. Okay? So self-esteem is absolutely in the pits. We need to teach ourselves self-respect. We need to have self-respect. All of us need to have self-respect. Everyone in the no-fap community, let's do self-respect together, bros. It's not, I don't respect myself. It's projecting out onto everybody else. How do y'all feel about this person's sense of autonomy? Do you think this person is in control of their life? Right? Stop giving out free validation. Unfollow. Build your value. Stop begging to be seen. What do y'all think about this person's sense of autonomy? Low. What do we think about their competence? Right? So competence, I think, is kind of hard. Maybe they're competent, maybe they aren't. Right? Relatedness. How do you feel about their, so we'll leave a question mark there. How do you feel about their capacity to relate and connect to other human beings? Do you think that they are psychologically frustrated? That they have a psychological need that they try to get met that then gets rejected? Low. Here it is. Look at this. And I swear I didn't find a post that perfectly fits this model. The post came first. Someone on our content team sent me this post and they're like, what do you think about this? So we look at the data and suddenly everything becomes clear. Right? So this is where they're and here's the problem. So here's where I think the problem is. Here's how we change it. Stop giving validation. Unfollow thirst traps. Build your value, your mind, your income, your wealth. Stop begging to be seen. So I think the problem with this is all in relation to the other person, except for this. Right? They think, and this is what I think the problem is. This is where all the misogyny comes from. See, if you're addicted to pornography or you're in this alpha male kind of thinking, it's not necessarily misogyny. It's not necessarily hate. But there's still, the locus of power is still with the other person. So you think oh, I am weak because I simp. We all simp. We're all weak. If we stop simping, then we will be strong automatically. That's not how it works. It is not the stopping of the simping that makes you strong. It is the development of strength that no longer makes you need to simp. It's the other way around. The answers have there's a behavioral component, sure, where if you're just doing this all the time, it's hard, but this should not be your focus. This is a great focus. Build a life that is worth living. These behaviors will melt away. And this is the problem, is if you say, stop giving free validation, what's that going to be driven by? It's going to be driven by anger. Stop it. I hate you and I hate myself. You're giving into that emotion. You're amplifying that emotion. The more you amplify that emotion, the more you're pouring gasoline onto a fire. So we try to like hard knuckle ourselves, like, "Arr, arr." It can help, certainly. It can get you started, but it's not the root of the problem. Stopping to give someone validation will just turn you into a cold person. It's not actually filling the void. Nowhere in here is this person saying, connect with another human being. Find a partner who loves you. Right? They sort of talk about building your value. And I don't blame this person. I don't think this person is bad or anything like that. I think this person is on their journey. They've discovered something. They're sharing it with someone. This is the beautiful thing about the internet, is that we don't have to know all the answers. We're all on a journey. We can figure out a piece. It's kind of in the right direction. But do y'all see how, like, in the right direction can fall off very quickly because of a couple of fundamentals? Like, if I dial your phone number and I mess up one digit by 10%, I end up in a completely different place. So I think the problem that I see a lot with pornography addiction today is that you have to know all of it, or as much of it as you can get. It doesn't work to just figure out one piece, because then your solutions will be in the wrong direction. Stop giving validation. Ask yourself why you're giving validation. Just focus your energy not on resisting to give validation. Focus your energy on building a life that is worth living. Once you feel better about yourself, you won't need to give anyone validation. Why do you give people validation? Because you crave something in return. Why do I tell you you're the prettiest belle of the ball? Because I want something from you. Feel satisfied within yourself, and all of this behavior will go away, right? Stop begging to be seen. Choose women who choose you. Sounds great. Sounds empowering. But what do you do if no one chooses you? Right? And I think there's a lot of practical stuff here that's good. Like, I think reducing these behaviors is good. But in my experience, the behavior is not, I mean, the behavior is important, but the behavior is half the problem. It's understanding of the underlying mechanism. Okay? And this person wants everybody else to do it. Let's reclaim our power, bros. No, you don't need to. I mean, you guys get the anger? It's like, I'm tired of these people. I'm tired of these people getting all this validation. Okay? All right. So let's take questions. Let me post a link to questions. Wait, hold on. Is there? Oh, great. Thanks, Miss Panda. Thank you very much. And then let me pull up so now we'll take questions. Okay, chat? Bruh. Okay, great. So while we're populating for questions, we're just going to do a couple of quick announcements. Okay, so first thing is we've had a lot of puer aeternus stuff. A lot of people care about puer aeternus, resonate with the concept. There's some cool posts sort of criticizing it as a construct. I think all that stuff is like awesome discussion. Would love to nerd out with y'all and just talk about Jungian, the scientific validity of Jungian things and what it is. Like, we should absolutely have that conversation one day. But we've started to try to create resource pages for people who resonate with certain pieces of content. It allows you to explore some various resources, explains what the concept is, tries to summarize things, draws things out in cycles. If I start something, I want to be sure that it will turn out well. And then it kind of goes into, like, to move past this paralysis of action, kind of gives you some guidelines. There's a confidence resource pack, which is free, by the way. You must be signed in, but it's free. It's kind of like a set of insights, exercises, videos. And then it just basically talks through all of the things that we offer to help y'all with this problem. So some of the stuff that we offer is free. Some of the stuff that we offer is not free. So I think coaching is actually very, very good for puer aeternus, because coaching is about taking action. And if y'all struggle with something like puer aeternus, I don't think the issue is whether you can do it on your own. I also think like a lot of the stuff about ahamkar from the meditation guide is going to be very, very helpful, right? So if people are asking, what do we do? There's a lot of stuff that we've built to help you with this. I think the main question is, what is your timeline for results? So the longer of a timeline that you have, the more you want to DIY it. Y'all have to be careful if you're puers. Because if you're puers, then you're going to look for the perfect solution. You're going to look for a reason to not act. You're going to look at something like coaching and you're going to say, oh, like it's not tailored to this, or it won't be perfect, or I don't know if it's going to work. Those kinds of thoughts, right? So be aware of that. I'm not saying you have to do it. At the minimum, be aware. That's the really important thing. But if y'all are interested in results fast, I think also for stuff relating to pornography addiction, like that's why we built it around life purpose. Okay? So there's a lot of good resources here. We have a workshop with Dr. Honda that is almost full. So we've got some spots left. Early bird pricing is over. So GG noobs. If y'all are AOE healer tier on memberships, you can still get a discount. And this workshop is all about healing from a relationship with narcissistic parents. Dr. Honda's great. Strongly recommend y'all check him out. Okay. And then I already kind of talked a little bit about, oh yeah. And then we have meditation tracks. This is cool. So we built these tracks for meditation to help y'all focus on things like emotional processing, focus and impulse control. So if y'all have trouble with, some stuff around pornography addiction, that lack of self-awareness, we're trying to build tools for y'all. Okay. And this is cool. In the last 10 days or so, people have meditated for about 700 hours. Good job, team. Okay, let's see what questions we've got. And just to kind of mention this, I don't know if this makes sense. So we talk a lot about problems on stream, and we do videos about them. The problem is that I can spend 2 hours talking about a problem, but the solution to that problem is going to be way longer than 2 hours. Does that make sense? The solution will be 8 hours, 10 hours, a lot of application, a lot of introspection. We've tried to build this stuff for y'all from the beginning. And so even today, I offered a framework, right? Focus on self-esteem. Be careful about psychological frustration. That's the real problem. That's the risk factor. Lack of self-awareness, using pornography. It's not the use, it's not the amount that you use, it's why you use it. What is driving you to use it? That's what causes the problem. So then if y'all say, okay, how do I learn alternate emotional regulation techniques? How do I build autonomy? How do I build competence? The fastest way is to work with a coach. That's why we built it. Because literally we do not know, I don't know if this makes sense. That is the most effective thing that we can build. How do you teach someone to be autonomous in life? Watching a YouTube video will probably go in one ear and out the other. It's not like you watch a video and then you're transformed, unless apparently it's the puer aeternus video. So we're trying to do that as much as we can, as often as we can. But the truth of the matter is, if you want to put together your life, it will require an investment. An investment of your time, of your energy, of your sweat, or your money. It will require an investment. I can't just say something to you and have you apparently be transformed unless it's puer. So once in a while, we'll take that long shot and we'll hit it. But do y'all understand? You can't rely on me to be like landing full court shots day in and day out. I literally do not know how to do that. If I could, believe me, I would. If I could fix your problems with a YouTube video, I would. I try every single day. But the truth of the matter is, if you want to put together your life, it's going to take more than a talking head on the internet. I wish that were not true, but that's the reality of it. This is what I've learned as a clinician. I can explain a concept to my patient in 2 hours. Fine. I have to work with them for 12 weeks, 14 weeks, 16 weeks, 1 hour a week to actually help them with their problem. So that's why we strongly recommend that y'all invest time, energy, money, resources, whatever you have to invest to fix your problems. We've tried to create some of that stuff on our own, But by all means, go elsewhere if you feel like that's better. We try to build things that are tailored to y'all. We know y'all really well. And the reason we know y'all really well is because many of y'all fill out our surveys. So thank you very much. Okay? So even this stuff, like, how did we decide on focus and impulse control and emotional processing as the first two of the first three tracks? Because those are the things that matter the most to y'all. And that's why we get such good outcomes. Okay? Let's go to questions. Does the type of porn matter whether it's healthy or not? Basically, I think the answer to that is no. So we do not have studies, or I haven't seen any studies that talk about the specific type of porn that you watch and the impact that it has. So it could matter, but we have no data to suggest that it matters. And I think we have enough research now to where we know what the problems are. The problems aren't in the porn itself. Whether the porn becomes problematic for you, so think about this, right? If the effect is within the pornography, then it should have a universal effect on people. Now, you can make an argument that there's a particular kind of porn that is more damaging, and everyone who watches damaging porn will be damaged. We just don't have data about that. But generally speaking, I think there's convincing evidence that it is the way that you use porn. What is going on in your head and what is going on in the rest of your life? Are you psychologically frustrated because you don't have control in your life? You don't have direction in your life? Your competence cannot show up in the world. You are competent, but it doesn't result in anything. People don't give you a chance to demonstrate your competence, to build something good. When you try to connect with other people, it doesn't work. You get rejected. Those are the problems, at least as according to the evidence. So right now, the type of porn you watch doesn't seem to matter. Now, if y'all believe it matters, by all means, please share that with me. Right? So if y'all disagree with this stuff, like, I don't know if this makes sense, but like, dude, like half of what we do is, I mean, like, we pay attention. You know, I'm a troll user on our subreddit. Like, so I read a lot of this stuff. I don't hang out quite as much on Discord, but other people do. And so we spend a lot of time like listening to y'all. That's why I think we're so effective. Because if y'all, I mean, it's not like Dr. K is the knower of truth. If you guys tell me, hey, I think the type of porn I watch matters a lot, here's why. We'll read it. If porn is a source of meditation, this is great. If porn is a source of mood regulation, how do I replace it? Oh my goodness. Wouldn't it be cool if we built a tool that allows you how to regulate your emotions and process your emotions? Wouldn't it be cool if we, let me see. Let me find this. How to regulate your emotions. Okay, hold on a second, chat. Okay, I don't know if this is going to make sense. Let me see if I can I sign in? Hold on. Okay. Okay. Wouldn't it be cool if we had something that we built that helps you with this? Hold on. Career, men's mental health. Where is, oh, here we go. Wouldn't it be cool if we had something? Like we had built a lot of stuff. Emotions, psychology of money part 2, deep dive into anger, dealing with uncertainty, breaking through overwhelm, deep dive into fear, quitting versus pushing through, anxiety in the body, self-esteem. Oh my goodness. Wouldn't that be cool if we had stuff? Let me see if I can find resources. Resource packs, right? So these are free. Here's building confidence, loneliness and isolation, life purpose, right? So like, I don't know if this makes sense. We fucking built everything. I mean, not everything. We're going to build more. But when y'all like give us money, we use it to build everything that you need. Not everything, but what we can build. So like the stuff is there. in our community. Like we have a lot of it. Right? So that's like why we build stuff. I don't know if this makes sense to y'all, but so I'm like looking at this problem, right? And I'm asking myself, how do we help these humans? And what I know is that making educational content on the internet is a huge part of it, but it only goes so far, right? It's like I can make cooking videos on the internet, but at some point you have to get the ingredients, prepare the food, and eat it. Like you can only get so far with educational content on the internet. And what I see in the world today is a huge problem with mental health, loneliness, whatever. So we are building stuff one laborious step at a time for 5 years, 6 years to help you guys with these problems. And that's why we build them, right? It's like all this foundational stuff of dealing with anger, understanding shame, understanding self-esteem, like understanding where this stuff comes from. And some of this stuff, like this is not cheap to build. Oh, let me find this. Right, this is cool, man. This takes money to build, guys. We have a dev team and a design team, and it's like really well done. So if y'all are looking for alternate emotional regulation practices, we've got YouTube videos about it. I'm going to do a deep dive into emotional processing as a live stream in the next few weeks, hopefully. Maybe it'll happen after August, but I'm not sure. So it's all there. Y'all just have to use it. Okay? Is there a 7-day course? I think there is a resource pack that y'all can check out, and there are a couple of very good membership lectures. So if y'all are averse to paying $10 a month, which gives you access to the whole library, then use the resource pack. But I really think the membership lectures are excellent. Okay. Do you think the use of sex workers is comparable to porn in these studies and in your mind? Yes and no. So the key thing about all these studies is that it is not the thing outside of you that is the problem. It is your relationship to the thing outside of you. So I think sex workers are absolutely comparable. If you've been psychologically frustrated in life, if you've been rejected when you try to connect with people, if you don't feel like you have power or competence in the world, if you are not aware of your emotions and you have difficulty regulating your emotions and you go to a sex worker, I think it'll be very comparable. I think it'll be even more addicting. Because I think the proxy that sex workers provide can feel much more intense than pornography. Right? So with a sex worker, there's a human, they smile at you, they touch you, there's a physical act. And I think the other reason it's potentially more damaging is because of the amount of guilt that you can feel. So after you engage with a sex worker, how do you feel about yourself? Do you feel guilty? Does your self-esteem decrease? Right? So those are the factors that make pornography damaging. And I think with a sex worker, there's a potential that you can amplify the damage. I've had patients who go to sex workers. I've had patients who are sex workers, and some people can have healthy relationships with sex workers. But I think like if you're vulnerable to this stuff, a sex worker is going to be bad, right? Because then you start to catch feelings and then you want to grab dinner or things like that. And then it becomes problematic, right? So I think it's going to be harder. What do you think of people who consume porn because their sex drive is higher than their partners? There is a ton of stuff about that. Let me find this. So I'm going to have to, I just didn't talk about that, but there's a ton of stuff about this. Okay, so increased interest in sex. Responses considered how pornography use increases libido, sex drive, sexual desire, interest in having sex, makes people more receptive to sexual advances. So pornography can actually increase arousal, especially in women. And it is absolutely utilized in with cases of higher libido. So pornography use is absolutely associated with high levels of libido. Let me see if I can find. Right. So participants reported watching pornography for diverse reasons, including entertainment, curiosity, as self-arousal activity, masturbate, an arousing activity with partners, as a means to learn how to perform certain sexual acts, to learn more information about a type of sexual act they are not familiar with, and an inspiration for sexual acts and offline sexual activities as a way to check if a sexual interest desire is normal. So there's a lot of stuff about desire, but I'm trying to find, there's stuff about libido. So there, I just can't find, maybe I'm looking for the wrong term, but there is absolutely a big correlation with mismatched libido in a relationship. And so if you have a partner who has a libido that's very different from yours, and one of y'all uses pornography, that can be healthy, that can be fine. I think that's where like transparency and communication matters a lot. Right? So that's where discussions with your partner and like figuring out, okay, like, is this a situation of pornography usage and masturbation, or like if you've got a headache or whatever, like actually you should have sex if you have headaches. It's one of the best treatments for a headache, is sexual activity. So that's not a great excuse. I mean, you can have any reason to say no, but the data suggests that it's very helpful for headaches. So it's a treatment. So I think it's all about healthy communication with your partner. Lust starts with looking at chicks on Insta or even on streets. How does one break that loop? Posted by Puer. Hold on a second. Let me see. Do we have... So, let me see. I think we've done it. Have we done deep dive into lust? Oh, yeah. Deep dive into lust. Look at that face. All right, so y'all can check out the lust video, but let's talk about this. Lust starts with looking at chicks on Insta or even on the streets. How does one break that loop? So if you are a man today, or a woman, and you spend some time on the internet, what you will discover is that you will become a thirsty motherfucker. There's so much thirst trapping going on, you know, and it is like intentional, right? So people will post pictures for the sake of invoking lust, to get attention, to evoke feelings in you, maybe drive behavior to their OnlyFans website or whatever. So how do you deal with this? So there are a couple of key things that we need to understand. Anytime a sensory input happens, our reaction to that depends on our level of satiety. Okay, so let's understand basic neuroscience. The amount of hunger that I feel when I smell French fries being fried or hamburgers being grilled or things like that depend on my satiety. Right? So it is not just the sensory stimulus. It is my degree of hunger that will create the response. So the first thing is you got to think about satisfying your lust, or managing your lust, let's say. So if I have lust within me, there are multiple ways to manage it. And this is where I think there's a really great post here where chronic masturbation is about the avoidance of horniness. So oftentimes the way that we manage our lust is to get rid of it. So when I feel lusty, I want to make that feeling go away. This is why we turn to things like masturbation, pornography, whatever, thirst traps, take your pick. So if I deal with my lust by making it go away, what does that train my brain to do? That trains my brain that when I'm hungry, I got to eat something. So then what happens is I start to spoil myself. My capacity to tolerate distress, tolerate internal uncomfortable states goes down. So I don't know if y'all have ever known someone who can't handle being hungry. They get really, really cranky. They start complaining a lot. Or they can't tolerate a room that's too hot or a room that's too cold. They're like giant babies. Their capacity to tolerate internal discomfort is very low. So if we're not careful, we will see a lot of lust that is evoked, right, by people who are intentionally competing with each other on the internet to evoke the most lust. And they figure out how to evoke it in the strongest way. That lust then enters us, and how do we respond to that lust? Do we give in to it? Do we have to make it go away by satisfying it? Because whatever you feed will grow. So if I'm used to getting all my needs met all the time, I will become a baby. Right? I'll start to throw temper tantrums. So how do you manage that lust once it arises within you? So managing that lust means 3 things. The first is be careful about your sensory inputs. The more you walk around smelling hamburgers, the more hungry you will be. And advertisers understand this. That's like literally why advertising is a thing. If they can bombard your senses, they can create urges and control your behavior. So as best as you can, stop watching people on Instagram. Unfollow them. Now, if that becomes hard for you, which it's going to be, you should ask yourself, as you are sitting there, let's say you pull up your favorite Instagram influencers, start unfollowing them. Pay attention to yourself and how you feel. How does it feel to unfollow them? What is going on within you? You must understand that. Because there's a part of you that doesn't want to do it. That you must understand. You can't, this is where like, you can't fight this opponent if you're blind to it. Emotional awareness is key. Internal awareness is key. So what is it that draws you to that person? Second thing is when you feel urges, it's not all the time or every time. As often as you can, and slowly you want to build this up, do not satisfy the urge. Do not satisfy the urge to open Instagram. Do not satisfy the urge to masturbate. Do not satisfy the urge to subscribe to their OnlyFans. Whatever. The more that you resist your urges, the more powerful you will become and the weaker the urges will become. Literally, from a neuroscience standpoint, when my brain sends me a signal and then I give it a response, those neuronal connections strengthen. They start to become habits, and then they become very hard to resist. So one thing that I've done several times is like quit soda. And it's hard at the beginning to resist, but each time you resist, you win. Each time you fail, you make it harder. So you can kind of think about it as every time you have an urge, there's 100 experience points which gets distributed. If you resist the urge, you level up. If you do not resist the urge levels up. Every single time you fight against an urge, one of y'all is leveling up. So a lot of people think it's about conquering the urges. That's not the right strategy. The question is, who is gaining XP? You don't have to conquer it, because if you level up enough, it won't be able to stand against you. You'll just one-shot it every time. It becomes easy. So every time you resist, you level up. Every time you don't resist, it levels up. That will determine who wins and who loses. Third thing is, once you understand what it is that this person is activating with you, what is your hunger, you must try to satisfy that hunger directly. Don't use the cheap, ultra-processed shitty version of Instagram influencer to satisfy that thing within you. If you look at that person and you say, I want to have a relationship with a hot human being, then you fucking go for that. Man, woman, I don't care. If you want a hot human being and you want to have sex with a hot human being, you should get your ass to the gym, start to work harder, go to a stylist, start to grind towards that goal. This is the craziest thing. When you give into lust on the internet, you are disabling the very motivation that will transform your life. Your desire, and then what happens is you give in to that lust, then it goes away. Then it's like, oh, I guess I'm gonna play video games until I get horny again. And it's like, no, like you use that, man. Like that is a powerful pull. It is such a powerful motivator, which is why Instagram influencers being thirsty is like a fucking industry. It's an industry. Why is it an industry? Because the motivational drive within us that it activates is so powerful. And if you don't fucking like literally and metaphorically blow your load on that, you've got so much load for other things. Fucking go to the gym. Like, you'll feel amazing afterward. You feel like powerful. Virya. It's hard to describe that word. Virya is like the strength. Like going to the gym and like if you have a choice between masturbating and then you feel like, right, let me find this. Where's the picture of the onanist? Oh God, I hope I can find this. Yes. This, my friends, is the onanist. The masturbator from a Swedish textbook in 1918. When you jerk off, this is what happens to you. Tissot is the author of that text. Okay? So, like, your energy is depleted. Like, your motivation is gone. Then it's like, And, like, that's from 1918, okay? That picture is 107 years old. And this fucking Tissot guy didn't use AI. He predicted what your post-O face looks like. He, like, figured it out, and he drew it. And, like, slapped it in a textbook. So let that energy, like, strive for that thing. That is your body, your brain telling you, hey, we want this thing. Fucking go for it. Don't use some cheap-ass substitute of pixels on a screen and auditory waves coming out of your speaker. Fucking go for it. You will feel amazing about yourself. When you grind towards it and then you start asking people out, you develop confidence. Like, you can turn your fucking life around. You can have that. You can date someone who is hot. You can actually do it. You can do it. This is the crazy thing. I think somewhere along the way, a lot of dudes gave up hope that this is possible. Right? We all think we're ugly ducklings, but like, and then we like find certain beliefs about ourselves, like, oh, I'm 5'4", so no woman will ever want me. Like, that's not true. You know why that's not true? Because, and this is great. I saw this post, which we can talk about a little bit later, but why I and many women have stepped away from dating, some thoughts from the community. It's a beautiful post. But if you're like a 5'4" short king and you're not a dick, like, women are piecing out of dating because there's a lot of asshole dudes. All you have to do is be a fitness bro without being an asshole, and you're Gucci. You're set. You do all the things that the podcast bros tell you to do, except become an asshole, and you can do that. Meditate some, work on your ego, and then you'll be like amazing. Like, women will be lining up. Just don't be an ass. And it's not that easy. I know it's not that easy. It's hard. It requires a lot of effort. If only you had some source of endless motivation, like lust and a drive to act, that you could channel, that shows up every single day, that you could invest into building something useful in your life. Like, wouldn't that be cool? But instead, what we do, we do this. We onanist our way into an empty life. Great question. Okay. Okay, this is great. So as women, how can we recover our self-worth and self-esteem after a partner who chose pornography over a healthy relationship, knowing he lusts after women who are different than their girlfriend? Excellent question. Love it. See, this is about the framing. So how does it feel if your partner is attracted or lusts after people who are not you? So this has a lot to do with how secure we are in ourselves. So if you're someone who needs to be the only thing that your partner is attracted to, where does that need come from? I'm not saying it's right or wrong, right? We all want our partner to only be attracted to you. Where does that need come from? Do you need to be perfect in their eyes? Do you need to be everything in their eyes? Why do you need to be so perfect to begin with? So oftentimes when I work with women who are insecure about their partner's pornography use, it's not my place to say, oh, this is an insecurity, therefore you need to get over it. We do an exploration. And what we discover is oftentimes they are not secure in themselves. And then what happens is they try to control their partner's behavior, try to reduce the pornography usage, which, by the way, remember, I don't know if y'all remember this, but external motivators, let me find this. Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Hold on. Nope. 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 Damn it. So if we look at, I can't find the reference right now. If we look at people who get addicted to pornography, one of the huge reasons they get addicted is because their use of it is driven externally. So if you try to restrict your partner's technology use, their desire is there. And you're trying to control their desire from the outside. I'm not saying it won't work, but it is not the best strategy, right? So when I'm working with someone who has an alcohol addiction, I can try to put as many safeguards around as I want, but if in their heart they want to drink, they're going to find a way. The way to fix that problem is to alter their internal desire, not put restrictions around them. Now, how can you alter their internal desire? That becomes challenging. Now the question is it easier to alter their internal desire or alter your internal relationship with them lusting after people that are not you? So this is what's really hard. If you're in a relationship, you can try to control your partner to help you feel more secure, but that doesn't solve the insecurity. In fact, that can enhance the insecurity. Because now, just like we talked about with dudes, you are giving into the insecurity. You're not learning to tolerate it. You're not conquering it. You're giving it what it wants. Now, this is tricky because there are many relationships where people will fall into really unhealthy patterns with like thirst traps. They're like spending, I mean, I've had not patients in my office, but people in my personal life, women whose husbands have spent $30,000 on OnlyFans in like a single year, and they find out about it. It's a financial betrayal. It's like, why the hell are you spending this kind of money on someone on the internet? Is there some kind of emotional affair going on? There's lots of like problems associated with this. So it's not just an insecurity on your part. There can be a very real damaging something that damages your relationship involving lust. So this is where I think it's like a little bit of both, right? So recover your self-esteem after someone looks at naked girls on the internet. As long as those two things are tied, you're screwed. If your self-esteem depends upon the behavior of your boyfriend and whether he looks at boobies on the internet, you're fucked. It is not self-esteem. It is esteem given to you by him. That is not self-esteem. As you develop self-esteem independently, your ability to tolerate that behavior or kick his ass to the curb will increase. Both of those will increase. As you feel secure in yourself, you will decide, you will look at this without the lens of your self-esteem. So now you don't have a horse in the game. You're fine either way. You feel good about yourself. You're confident in yourself. Then you're going to look at the behavior and you will look at it objectively. As long as your self-esteem is tied up in the behavior, you won't be able to see it objectively. Let me know if y'all need more explanation on that. Someone just say, please say more about that, Dr. K. But once you have self-esteem, you'll be able to look at their pornography usage and you'll say like, okay, they clearly love me. They clearly are attracted to me. Their libido is higher than what I want to accommodate. It's a pain in the ass. They're horny all the time. If they want to watch porn from time to time, like whatever. As long as they're available when I want them, it's fine. Or you'll look at this and you'll say, this person is way too emotionally invested. They prefer the fictional relationship or the fantasy life of pornography to our real relationship. This is not someone that I want to have a relationship with. I'm going to kick him to the curb. I'm breaking up with you. You will be able to see how problematic it is. So the key thing is to separate your self-esteem from who they choose to be lustful towards. Second thing is to have a conversation with them about it. What do you like about it? Why do you do this? What does it do for you? How do you think about me? And really listen to what they have to say. Here's how I feel about it. Here's what makes me uncomfortable. Right? Because there is a lot of insecurity associated with it. But I think that insecurity comes a lot from needing to be everything. And 17% of people, women, I think, consider pornography use to be moral infidelity. So you're not alone in that, right? Almost 20%. And some people may consider it moral infidelity. I imagine there's a larger percentage of people who consider it unhealthy in some way or not ideal for the relationship. That's probably close to 30, 40, 50%. Right? So I think like separate your self-esteem. You are worth more. You deserve enough self-respect to where your self-esteem should not be tied to the lusty choices of the person you're in the relationship with. You should respect yourself more than that. And that will bludgeon your self-esteem because you should respect yourself more, right? So I'm even denigrating the person that I'm talking to by using the word should. So take a deep breath. Ask yourself, and they're saying, is the first step a conversation? I don't even think the first step is a conversation. First step is reflection. Always reflect before you converse. Why is this so important to me? What am I afraid of if he watches this? What does it mean about me? Where does my esteem come from? Where did my low, presuming it's low, where did my current state of esteem come from? Understand yourself first. Then when you talk to them, you can articulate things. Because what's really confusing, this is really annoying in relationships. See, the biggest mistake that many people make in relationships is they try to talk about their problems, which I know sounds dumb, right? Aren't we supposed to talk about our problems? Well, yes and no. So sometimes, I don't know if y'all have ever been in a relationship where someone just comes to you to talk about their problems, even your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, wife, husband, and they haven't thought things through. So they just come to you and they're like, bleh, bleh. They just start like vomiting all their like concerns, and you're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. It's like some like downloading of some pile of anxiety. And it's like your partner doesn't know what to do with that. And OG Spiral Night is good. Just listen helps a lot, but sometimes it's not sufficient. So I think if you want to have an important conversation with your partner, reflection is the first step. Organize your thoughts. Convey what you want to convey. Ask the questions when you need, figure out what information you need and ask those questions. Clarify what you want to say. Reflection prior to conversation will enhance conversations so much more. Because it can get really frustrating when someone else is thinking out loud, especially when it's problems in a relationship. When someone shows up and just starts thinking out loud about problems with you, that can be really hard to tolerate. And then you do this, 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 and you never do this, and you never do that. And it's like, that's how divorces are born. So reflect. And then I'm not saying you shouldn't talk to your partner about, hey, can you cut back on your pornography use? Why do you use pornography? It makes me feel really insecure. I feel less attractive than the people that you're masturbating to. And they may have a different perspective on it, right? So I had a patient once who watched a certain kind of fetish porn, and their partner did not want to engage in that fetish. So this is where, like, okay, I have a desire for something that makes me sexually satisfied. I don't need you to engage in it. I love you. I enjoy our sexual relationship. It's every once in a while I want to do this fetish. And since you're not comfortable with it, I would never ask you to do something that you're not comfortable with. And at the same time, I have certain needs. I don't really think it's very harmful. Like, I just kind of do it every once in a while. You know, I'm not spending $30,000 on OnlyFans. I'm not forming emotional relationships. Does that work for you? And for each couple, that's going to be a separate answer. Right? For some people, it's going to be, okay, like, let's figure out how to engage in that fetish. I want to be a part of it. For other people, it's going to be like, okay, you do your thing. I'm content. We can figure out some way to have some happy medium where you do your thing, and then we're going to have a relationship that involves our sexual relationship. And there's many people, probably the majority of people, who break up or divorce. TBH. Maybe that's a sample size issue because I'm a psychiatrist. But most of the time, that doesn't work out. TBH. I wish that it did, but it doesn't. Which is life. Great question. Right, so knowing he lusts after women who are way different than his girlfriend. So I think that's something where you got to do some internal work and talk to that person about it. How do I figure out why I watch porn? What a great question. So if you want to figure out why you watch porn, one really simple thing you can do. Don't watch it. As you don't watch porn, you will notice something arise within you. Whatever that is will feel more uncomfortable as time goes on. It'll feel deeply uncomfortable. And this is the thing. We don't know. So there's a correlation between lack of self-awareness and problematic pornography use. We are usually blind to this stuff. A big part of this is oftentimes alexithymia, which is emotional color blindness. You don't know what you're feeling. You just have these impulses. You have drives, but you don't know where they're coming from. So if you're alexithymic, there's one really interesting thing that you can do. If you don't know why you watch porn, the key thing is as you don't watch it, whatever that signal is will get louder. As the signal becomes louder, it will be easier to detect. At the top of the list for why people watch porn and don't realize it, emotional regulation. So oftentimes you are feeling anxious, you're feeling overwhelmed, your brain needs a break from what it's focusing on. It's a mental reset. Second thing is self-stimulation, boredom, lack of dopamine. So something about your life feels empty. And to fill up the void, we watch porn. There's an inverse relation, and this isn't technically true, but functionally true. There's an inverse relationship between dopamine and serotonin. The more dopamine I activate in my nucleus accumbens, the less good I feel about my life. Serotonin gives us contentment, dopamine gives us pleasure. Usually there's an inverse relationship between these two things. If I spend a whole day or a whole week engaging in pleasurable activities, I usually don't feel content at the end of that. If I work really hard, work my ass off for a week and do something really, feel really accomplished, my serotonin level will be high. I will feel very content, but it's not like that was pleasurable. So oftentimes the reason that we fall into pornography is because we don't feel content enough in life. If we don't feel content and we feel empty, we will fill that void up with dopamine. Okay? So those are usually the two most common things. How do I stop seeking validation when being rejected multiple times? After all, validation is a part of a healthy relationship. Okay. How do you stop seeking validation after being rejected multiple times? So this is, once again, the problem. See, if you are seeking validation, you feel uncomfortable you feel discontent in yourself. Right? So validation is, I feel this way. I don't feel great about this. I need someone else to tell me this is okay to feel. I don't feel good. Tell me I'm not crazy. Give me permission to feel this way. That's what validation is about. It is about permission to feel the way that you feel. Because you doubt, you don't give yourself permission. You're like, am I crazy? Is this okay? And when someone else validates you, they're like, yeah, it's okay. It's hard. It's hard. You know, like I would be struggling too. We feel really good. So generally speaking, yogis don't need validation. That's why they sit in the Himalayas and in caves. They're just chilling. So validation is only necessary when you don't feel good about yourself. Right? If I feel like leaving this job is the right thing to do and I feel centered, I feel tranquil, I don't need anyone else's tell me it was okay or not okay. So the core need is that if you don't validate yourself, you need it from somebody else. If you don't feel good about it in here, that's where it really comes from. The cool thing is that once you feel centered in here, other people can reject you and not give you your validation, and you don't need it anymore. The problem isn't that people reject you so you need their validation. When you get tied up requiring validation from outside of you, that is when you become sensitive to rejection. Because then they hold the power of making you feel okay or not okay. It becomes a vicious cycle. So find that internal contentment with yourself. And validation can be a useful way to build that over time in some cases. Right? So if I like get dumped by my boyfriend and then I'm like, oh my God, like this guy is kind of an asshole. And then my friends are very validating. They're like, yeah, he is an asshole. Yeah, he is an asshole. It can sort of, validation can sometimes coalesce a belief I have. And then once it becomes coalesced within me, then I feel secure. So it's not that validation is bad. It can cement your self-esteem. It, generally speaking, has that effect. But then we've got to be super careful, because if we are relying on it to cement our self-esteem, then we become victims to other people's validation or lack of validation. So we lose power. And that's where I think you've got a couple of options. Right? So option number one, so after all, validation is part of a healthy relationship, right? So if you're in a relationship with someone where they are not validating, then you should re-examine that. And this is the tricky thing. Re-examine doesn't mean they need to validate you more. Maybe they're validating you plenty. So I had a patient once with body dysmorphia, and their partner went insane trying to validate them because no amount of validation was enough. I've had patients with BPD who have abandonment fears, whose partners go insane trying to tell them, hey, I'm not leaving. No, you're going to leave. Hey, I'm not leaving. You're going to leave. I'm not leaving. You're going to leave. I'm trying to demonstrate my commitment. Not enough. You're going to leave me. Fuck it. I don't know how to win. I'm out. I don't know how to make you happy. Right? So you've got to be really careful. How much do they validate you? What's their perspective? Are they being assholes? Or is your need for validation too deep of a pit? I don't know. Both are options. Maybe you're dating an ass. Maybe you're way too insecure. It's hard to say. So I check out some stuff around Samskar's ego. Like, how is your ego? How do you feel about yourself? Do you feel about yourself you feel pretty good about yourself most days? And then you're just married to someone who's kind of like self-absorbed and can't it doesn't have empathy, then like move the fuck on. Or actually don't move the fuck on. I don't like that answer. So I think the other big mistake that we make is, see, everyone in the dating world is like, if they don't have this, move the fuck on. Which is where, like, if you've got a pretty good partner who has some fundamental flaws, like, giving them some time to work on it, I think is the best way to find a good relationship. Give them some time to work on it. Like, if my wife listened to the dating advice on the internet, we wouldn't be married today. Bruh, she started dating me. I was fucking college dropout, no money. I didn't think I was very physically attractive. I guess she disagreed, but whatever. You know, I was like a quintessential loser. Like, you check the box. You take your pick of any alpha male podcast. You take your pick of any, like, feminist, whatever, like, girl power podcast. The one thing they agree on is that loser dudes are losers. It's kind of weird, right? Like, that's the one place they agree. Don't date a fucking loser. Don't be a fucking loser. I was a loser. And thankfully, my wife gave me a chance to, like, you know, step the fuck up. And she was crushing it. She started working when she was 16. She's been working for 20 plus years straight. Had her shit together, had good grades, had her own apartment, had her own car, was hot, is hot, you know, does pretty well. Like, she had it all. And I was like a loser. And so then I was dating her and I was like, okay, this is fucking pathetic. I really got to up my game to be, like, worthy of dating this woman. So I fucking upped my game is what I did. So I think give people a chance to up their game. She was also really patient with me. She never said, this is the crazy thing. Blows me away. She never said, hey, you need to do better. Like, that blows my mind. She was never like, you're a fucking loser. You need to get your shit together. Years. Not once. So she was just supportive. And so now it's like, damn. So I think we got to give people those chances. Got to give losers a chance to grow the fuck up. And this is what makes it so hard is, like, if you give them a chance and you're dating a loser, like, those are years of your life that are gone. Years of your life that you invest in this loser. And that's a big price. She paid it. And that's why we have the relationship we have today. And it's like, we kind of want to make sure that we're not going to waste years of our life. I think you got to waste years of your life on losers if you want to find love. And so then how do you know who to invest in? I think it's people who take it in their hearts to want to do right by you. People who take it in their hearts that they want to be better. Even if they struggle, even if they watch porn, even if they play video games. People who, like, in their hearts are invested in trying to do better. Great questions. Okay. All right. There's a great question about, am I experiencing a placebo effect, or is my increased proactivity during long abstentions real? I'm working on a lecture on... Hello.
You're so cute, though.
Okay, she apparently has been watching.
I watched for a little bit because the contractors are here.
Okay.
Don't talk about yourself.
Okay. Why not?
Nobody talks about my man.
Okay. She says I shouldn't talk about myself like that. Go ahead. Go. Bye. I feel secure. I'm okay. She's protective, but I'm fine. I don't. I can shit on myself, and it's not like, I hope y'all can tell. Like, I don't feel bad about myself. It's an appreciation. And look, like, sometimes we suck in life. Like, that's not, you know. Like, we got to admit it. Like, we can't be like, oh, yeah, no, like, oh, like, everything is okay. Like, you're great and you're doing an awesome job. Like, no. Sometimes I'm doing a shitty job in life. Sometimes I stream and it's terrible. And sometimes, like, and that's okay. You know, like, it's okay. Like, this is where everyone's like, oh, don't talk so bad about yourself. And it's like, this is the thing. I think we should live in a world, or just me. I think instead of not talking poorly about ourselves, we need to be okay with it. Like, we have to be able to admit, hey, sometimes I suck at things, and that's okay. And it doesn't mean I'm going to suck at things for the rest of my life. This is not my destiny, but this is a problem, and it's a real problem, and I'm really bad at it, and that's okay. And I totally get that she's like loving and protective and all that kind of stuff, but like, I mean, I still suck at stuff. You just don't have to get your ego invested in it, right? You can admit that, like, look, the reason I suck at this is because I haven't tried a whole lot, or my brain doesn't work in a great way, or I don't exert the right effort, or I don't have experience. You don't have to take it personally. It doesn't have to become the suck doesn't have to be a part of your identity. It can just be an attribute of like, oh, I'm level 1 in speechcraft. I suck at socializing with people. So be it. Right? That doesn't define you as who you are. It is a competence that you lack. And so if y'all suck at something, that's okay. The problem is when you make being bad at something your destiny. It is like, oh, I suck, and forevermore I will suck. I will be terrible for the rest of my life. It is determined. It has been seen. It has been written in the stars. I know astrology is bullshit, but my inability to date, that has been foreseen. It has been prophesized. I have seen the prophecy in my mind. Forever, I will be alone for the rest of my life. You do not know. I'm 19 years old and I've never had a girlfriend. I'm 21. I've never had a girlfriend. I'm 40. I've never had a girlfriend. It will be for the rest of my life. Right? And I think that your future is determined by your actions and your karma. Your circumstances can kick your ass. And I don't think they form your destiny, right? So you can't control your circumstances. You can only control how much you respond to them. And there is a huge debate. I hope to stream next week on internal versus external motivation. And it's wild. Right? Because there's a ton of people out there who are like, there's nothing I can do. I've tried everything. Nothing is working. And like, I think they're not wrong, but also they're not right. I've tried everything. Nothing has worked. And that like presumes that trying the same thing again will have the same result. Presumes that the circumstances are exactly the same. The only thing that really leads to failure is giving up. Right? So that's when the probability of success, people will say, oh my God, Dr. K, that's not true. The probability of success drops to 0 when you stop trying. That is the only definitive thing that leads to failure. Now, is the probability of success 0 if you exert 100% effort? Maybe. I don't know. But neither do you. You don't know. Maybe the 1,001st person you ask on a date will say yes. You do not know. You cannot predict the future. Is the likelihood of probability low? Absolutely. But there are things you can do to increase the probability, but we don't think about those as much. And a lot of people do. They try everything. They're like, I tried this, and nothing works. Even then, like the reason I believe this stuff is not because I think y'all are wrong. It's just I have had too many experiences of people being hopeless and have given up on life where they get their shit together. Like, it's wild. That's why I believe. Because I've seen it happen again and again and again and again. Where can I find a spark? What a beautiful question. I'll tell you where you find your spark. You stop extinguishing it. That's where you find a spark. There are so many things that you do throughout the day that extinguish your spark. Right? And it's not your fault that you do them, but you give in to what the circumstances of the world push you to do. You have the fucking spark. It's just, it's so hard to keep it going. You don't have to find it. Just stop extinguishing it. Whether that's not playing a video game. Like, I think just spending time with yourself, we get burned down by work and relationships and family drama and all this kind of shit. It's so easy. And then when we get ground down, right, we're the ones, I don't know if this makes sense. It's not that they kill your spark. They wear you down so much that you take your big ass foot and you stomp down on whatever hope or dreams you have left. Because when you're looking at the world and there's too many mountains to climb, you don't have time for the one thing that you love. Because you got to work, you got to pay bills, you got to work out, you got to do your laundry, you got to work on certifications, the existential threat of AI, everything is falling apart. I don't have time for this. That despair, that sense of being overwhelmed, you think you can't find it, but you're the one that killed it. You're the one that steps on it every single day. When midnight rolls around and you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, tomorrow is going to be different. Why the fuck do you say tomorrow instead of now? Tomorrow I'm going to get up and I'm going to work. Get the fuck up now. And then you'll say, but then I'm going to be tired for work. Be tired for work. Right? Pay the price to, like, building your life comes at a price, a very high price. That's why people don't do it. Everyone's like, oh, live the life of your dreams. No, living the life of your dreams sucks. Living the life of your dreams means in your weekends, nights, in the minutes that you have left when you're taking a dump on the toilet, instead of like watching Instagram, you have to like leave your phone behind. So you've got 7 more minutes that you have now that you're going to do a tiny bit of administrative work. So you're going to carve this. It's like escaping from prison with like a fork and tunneling through the wall. Building the life of your dreams comes at a very high price. The reason it comes at such a high price is because while you are trying to build the life of your dreams, you have to live a life of your nightmares every single day. You have to build 2 lives. Here's the life of my nightmares that I exist in now, that I have to survive while I am building the life of my dreams. And the only way to do it is with sweat and toil and suffering. The road to heaven looks like hell, and the road to hell is paved with good intentions. All right. If you're going to start now, I'm going to peace out. So, got to be honest with y'all. Y'all are fired up. Y'all are juiced up. I'm wiped. So, I'm going to play a little bit of Dune Awakening, maybe take a nap. And then tomorrow morning, I'm going to get up and I'm going to work my ass off. But I think I've earned a break. So I'm going to take it if that's cool with y'all. And, sometimes you just get eaten by the sandworm and that's what it is.